Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Jewish Small Communities Network. And this morning we have a special event. We are talking about the Jews of Ethiopia. In fact, really the Jews that are still left behind. And we have a special guest with us, Avraham Neguise. I pronounced his name incorrectly straight off. Avraham, say hello.
Hello, everyone.
And could you just do much better than me and just say your full name properly?
Avraham Neguise.
Neguise, thank you. Welcome to you. We also have Rabbi Sybil Sheridan, who is joining us, and we'll see on screen a little later on. If you want captions, they are available if your sound is not so good as well. So just press the caption button at the bottom. Now then, a number of years ago, the wider Jewish communities became aware, rather belatedly, of the Jewish community in Ethiopia. The world had been very much occupied with Western European Jews, with the Second World War, with the Holocaust. But in the 1980s and 1990s, the Jews of Ethiopia really came to the foreground, especially when there were two massive airlifts of Ethiopian Jews to get them out of the country and resettle them in Israel. And Avraham was part of that migration from Ethiopia. But how did the Jews get there in the first place? Well, today we'll find out. And what about the Jews that are still left there? And what is life like in Israel if you are an Ethiopian Jew? So welcome, Avraham. We're going to show a small video just to sort of contextualize things. So I'm going to rely on Sybil to start up the video, and we're going to have a view of that.
Ethiopia for thousands of years. Known as Beit Israel, most of them are now in Israel. However, there are over 9,000 who claim Jewish descent and are practicing as Jews. Largely in Gondar in northern Ethiopia, they are called Zera Yisrael, the descendants of Israel. Mekta became involved in 2010 to support those living in extreme poverty. Zera Yisrael left their villages, where they had worked for centuries, and came to Gondar in preparation to go to Israel. 20 years on, many are still there. Often illiterate, they do not have the right skills for well-paid work, and are ill-equipped to cope with urban living. Mekta works for the welfare of the community. They ensure that children receive support in their education, they arrange training for teenagers who have finished school, and they provide loans to establish small businesses to enable the poorest families to provide for themselves. Mekta helps members of the Zera Yisrael community become self-supporting so that they can raise themselves out of poverty and not be dependent on charity. Mekta's aim is to help the whole community become financially independent so they have no further need of charity.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. Avraham, just tell us a little bit about what life in Ethiopia was like when you were living there as a child, as a young man.
I was born and grew up one of the remote village outside Gondar city. And I grew up as a shepherd in the countryside. When I strong enough to walk a long distance, my parents sent me to school. I finished my high school in Gondar city, the city where you just see now in the video. I grew up like those children that they're walking without shoes. I grew up there. I studied there. I married there. And in 1985, I migrated with my wife and daughter to Israel. When we arrived, we were located in Jerusalem, one of the absorption centers, where we had the privilege of studying Hebrew language. And then we received the opportunity from the government that I can join the Hebrew University, and my wife joined the nursing school in Jerusalem. I studied social work in Hebrew University, my first degree, second degree, and while I was a student, I also been active and established the first Ethiopian Israeli Student Association in all the universities in Israel, which will enable us to support, to facilitate tutoring and other challenges for the students from different universities in Israel. And then during Operation Solomon, I was in that time a social worker in the Jerusalem City Hall Social Service Department. So I was told that it will be a secret operation and we need you to organize social workers here in order to receive the newcomers and explain what are the challenges that the immigrants are expecting, and also the professional workers in Israel are expecting, what kind of people are expecting, even though there was already experience that people walked through in the 1980s, and in 1984 was an Operations Moses, which walked to the desert to Sudan and then airlifted to Israel. But still, the knowledge about the Ethiopian Jews was very low. And I was trying to explain in the professional language for those social workers who will going to receive these newcomers and guide them in their new life in Israel. Going in that process, I also continued study a second degree in social work. Then after Operation Solomon, there was created about 2,000 of part of the community were left behind. So I organized, established a non-profit organization and start advocating starting from 1991, immediately after Operation Solomon. While I was advocating on behalf of those who are left behind, I continued to study in order to have a knowledge which will enable me to confront the bureaucracy in Israel. So I went to study another master in business administration and law. I studied law and I did my PhD in education in your country at Sussex University. So all the time while I'm doing leading as a husband, as a father, and then as an activist, I was also continuing to study. And then when the challenges in the immigration and integration process are really very challenging one. So I said, using the Israeli democratic values in Israel that we have, such as demonstrating, petition to High Court, lobbying the parliament, the Knesset, and the government. So I joined the Likud party in order to facilitate my agenda, my questions about advancing my community, both on the integration and the immigration process. So I joined the party, and in 2015, I was elected as a candidate in the primaries of the party to be a member of Knesset, and I was elected. I was number 27, and Likud in the general election received 30 seats, so that enabled me to be one of the member of Knesset in the Israeli Knesset, in the Israeli parliament.
So that's quite a journey from being a shepherd as a boy, as a young man in Ethiopia, to going through so much higher education, leading, being, an activist, putting in place something completely new in Israel, an understanding of the social needs of Ethiopians who had made Aliya or making Aliya, and then going on to become a member of the Knesset, an MK in the parliament in Israel. That's a lot. Let's unpack some of the things which go along with that. I mean, you mentioned the evacuations, the airlifts, the journeys of around 150, 160,000 eventually, I think, wasn't it, to Israel?
You mean today, the Ethiopian Jews in total, including those born in Israel, we are now 170,000.
But
in that specific operation in 1991, Operation Solomon was airlifted 14,200 within 36 hours with 34 aircrafts. And that was really a very success of the Israeli government and the diaspora Jewry unitedly redeemed the Ethiopian Jews and brought to the land of Israel, which changed the dream and the vision of 2,500 years into a reality that until today, we see that the Ethiopian Jews are continuing arriving in Israel. My story is also the story of my community. There are many who go this journey, thousands, and now integrated here in Israel. And in the Knesset, I served as the head of immigration, absorption, and diaspora affairs for 4 years. And in that committee, we advanced many issues, not only the Ethiopian Jewish issue, all over the world, the global Jewish issue, the global Jewish immigration to the state of Israel. And one of the facts that as the government and the Jewish agency closed the Aliya in 2013, my being a member of Knesset gave me an opportunity to refuse to vote in the coalition unless the Jewish migration from Ethiopia is reopened. That decision is still now opened ways. It was in 2015, the decision, especially those who are on the father side was denied their rights to immigrate to Israel, those Jewish on the father side, and 2015 opened also those on the father side can also immigrate to Israel, and they are coming. Now,
But
this is
a problem there, isn't there? Sorry, excuse me. There's a problem there, isn't there? Because like you say, the responsibility for handling this migration from Ethiopia has been supported, has changed from different agency to different agency, and now the Jewish agency is no longer doing it. Is that correct?
Well, the Jewish agency has the Jewish agency is implementing government decisions. Once the government decide, the Ministry of Interior of Israel is the one who is giving approval, who is eligible to immigrate to Israel according to the law and the government decision. Once the people who are approved, then the Jewish agency is the one who is facilitating bringing them, preparing them and bringing them. Now, summarizing to my journey is that, as you said, grow up as a shepherd and immigrated to Israel, or made Aliya to Israel, received equal opportunities in education, and put my personal efforts to that opportunity, and reached to one of the lawmakers of the state of Israel. That happened because we have Israel as a Jewish and a democratic state. So because of we have Israel as a Jewish homeland, that enable us to come from the four corners of the earth and being one people here in the land of Israel. Now, I will put my personal story in this way. If you want me to continue about the community and the present challenges, then I will go.
Well, let me ask you a couple
questions.
of questions. Let me ask you a couple of questions, short questions, perhaps.
Okay.
People would be interested in the historical background, the almost biblical background of the Ethiopian community. because that relates to what's happening with the immigration now. When you immigrated, it was accepted by the parliament, by the Beth Din. There was a decision made that initial group of people were of valid Jewish descendants. But the group of people we're talking about today is slightly different, because maybe we can relate it back to Spain, where we have people who are now becoming Jewish again, the Moranos, who had been forced into Christianity, but who was coming back to her faith. Now, that am I right in thinking that something similar is happening?
Yeah, I will. Okay, I will explain. You know, there are the Ethiopian Jews since settled in Ethiopia went through historical challenges. Being Jewish in Ethiopia is not easy. I guess also some diaspora stories is similar to the Ethiopian Jewish history. Now, the Ethiopian Jews in different period, there was a time of the golden ages where the Jewish were strong enough and even led in the northern part of Ethiopia, but especially in the 19th century, the community went through a tragic. That period is known as bad period, bad days, because there were 4 tragic events happened at the same time. There was a king called John IV who declared that Jewish and Muslims must be converted to Christianity, and Ethiopia must be only a Christian country. And then he declared that, and many Jews and many synagogues were destroyed, and many Jews converted in that time by force. At the same time, there was a drought, there was epidemic, and there was also, as a result of the king declared by force to convert Muslims and Jews who are not non-Christians must be Christians, the radical Muslims who ran away to Sudan organized and connected with Islamic radicals from Egypt and Turkey and Sudan, and launched in war against the Ethiopia, against the king. That is called the Dervish War. And they invaded in Gondar area, which was, in that time, Gondar was the capital city of Ethiopia. So they invaded, and the Jewish was trapped in Bithyun, and many leaders, spiritual leaders, were scattered and killed, and synagogues destroyed, books burned, and many forced. And that reality is reflecting to the present situation. Why? Because the descendant of those people are always kept their identity and married by themselves, separated their villages, and then now they returned back to their roots, to Judaism, and I mean, many of them, thousands of them, have already migrated to Israel, especially after Operation Salomon, between 1992 to the present day, as a descendant of Jewish on their mother's side. that process was done until the end of 2013. Now, 2013, they stopped, and they said those who are on the father's side, they cannot, because according to the Jewish law, according to Halacha, those who are Jewish on their mother's side, on the maternally link, is always even though they converted to Christianity, they remained Jewish, because it said even a Jew sinned, remained. It's in Hebrew, Afal Pishe Israel Chata, Israel Hu. Maybe I need a translation from Rabbi Sybil, help on that.
All right, even though Israel has sinned, they remain Israel. In other words, that a convert to Christianity is still considered Jewish in halachic terms.
So that lets the religious establishment in Israel, the rabbinical institutions here in Israel said, if they are Jewish on the mother's side, then we must accept them. So Rav Ovadia Yosef declared, Rav Mordechai Eliyahu, Rav Amar, and even Rav Amar visited Gondar Ethiopia, and visited the community. And as a result of that, 2003, Ariel Sharon, a prime minister, and then the head of the Ministry of Interior was Elishai, decided those who are on the mother side can immigrate to Israel under the law of interior. Whoever proved until through the law of return as a third generation grandchild of a Jew, they immigrate under the law of return, and those who cannot immigrated as a descendant of Jew because of the mother side. Now, this kind of realities, this kind of people are those who are waiting now in Gondar and in Addis Ababa, the Jewish community. If I focus in Gondar, these people are living a religious Jewish life, synagogues, mikvah, and they pray 3 times a day, holidays, Shabbat, and they also have Talmud Torah, which means they study Torah for children after school program, and they continued to immigrate to Israel under the Israeli government decision. However, the government now is bringing family reunification of the first-degree families. Now, at the present, until the end of this month, they will be bringing 3,000 as it is decided in the previous government. Now, in the present government, it is under discussion whether to continue to bring them or to stop. That's why this month was very intensive advocacy activity that really we are doing here. And that's the reason why I didn't come and meet you in person physically in the United Kingdom, because I need to advocate. So you are right. This is a people that there is an argument about their right to immigrate to Israel or not. Now, regarding whether these people, why they are not eligible under the law of return, we have an argument, because the law of return is saying that an Article 4A in the law is saying that if anyone would convert to another religion by force, then it is recognized under the law of return. But The government, they said they were not forced. So that is the argument. But the compromise that is saying that it is a unique situation, because in one way, these people are Jewish according to halacha, as I said earlier, because of the mother side. Not all, the majority, those who are waiting there. And so the rabbis are saying, let's continue bring them, because once they come to Israel, they also go through a symbolical conversion under the chief rabbinate instruction in order to remove their past, in addition to the life that they are living as an observant Jewish in Gondar and in Addis Ababa. That's accepted by the community.
Avraham, can I just go back a little bit here, because that leads us into some of the challenges, because we're going to talk a little bit later about the challenges in Ethiopia today, and you alluded to them there, about the thousands who are left behind and who are facing, first of all, a political challenge, which is what you were just talking about, but thinking about the challenges of coming from Ethiopia into what is a very westernized modern Israel today is a very different situation. Can we just go right back to the beginning, just to contextualize it for those people who don't know? The Jewish community in Ethiopia was pretty much isolated from early biblical times, wasn't it? So it's not been the Judaism that us in the West have known, as normal for us. It's been slightly different, because it's not been a Judaism. It's a Judaism which had the Torah, but it didn't have, am I right in saying, the rabbinic interpretations, the Talmudic interpretations. And so some of the things that we take for granted in the West, that's completely new, and that had to be absorbed by those who made Aliya. Is that correct?
Yes. Look, there are two approaches on the history of Ethiopian Jews: the rabbinical approach and the historical approach. The rabbinical approach is based on sources from the Tanakh, from the Bible, from the Torah, and also rabbinical traditional sources. I will mention a few of them. The biblical sources is a book of Isaiah, chapter 15, verse 15, is telling us that at the end of the day, all the Jews will be gathered, and Cush is mentioned in that with other countries. Cush is also Jewish, will be brought from Cush. In the book of Zephaniah, chapter 3, verse 10, we can see that beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my children will bring my mincha, my sacrifice. So many times Ethiopia is mentioned, and which means that it tells us that in the time of Isaiah and Zephaniah, there was Jewish there was Jewish present in Ethiopia. When we go to the rabbinical traditional sources, in the 9th century, started from Eldad Adani, who is from a tribe of Dan, is saying that the Ethiopian Jews are from the tribe of Dan when there was a conflict between Roboam and Jeroboam, when the northern kingdom was being taken captivity by the Assyrians. So in that conflict, the tribe of Dan didn't want to take side. So they went to Egypt and settled. From Egypt through Nile River and reached to Ethiopia. That is one rabbinical history tradition. And also Radbaz, the chief rabbi of that time in the 16th century in Egypt, he said the Ethiopian Jews are Jewish people that he met, some of them, as they brought them as prisoners in Egypt, and so on. In 1864, the chief rabbi of Europe, Germany, Rabbi Ariel Hendel-Seimer, he called to the Jewish people to save Ethiopian Jews. And in 1867-68, the Society for Israel Alliance from France sent Joseph Alavi, who was the first white Jew to meet Black Jews in their villages in Ethiopia. So in the 19th centuries, after many years of disconnected from the Jewish people, and the Ethiopian Jews is reconnected to the Jewish people in the 19th century. Even in spite of that connection, still the very Jewishness of the community was doubt, because the Ethiopian Jews was only stick to the Torah. As the traditionalists said, the Jewish, because they've been left the land of Israel before, some of them the first temple period, and then the second temple period. So the modern rabbinical is not known to them. That is why they've been only in the Torah. Now, this has been the argument even after the establishment of the State of Israel. When the State of Israel in 1948 was established under the ingathering of the exiles, and they bring from Yemen, from Morocco, from all over the country, the Ethiopian Jews were rejected because they were not accepted as Jewish people. I mean, in spite of knowing Rabbi Cook, the Rabbi Rashi, or the head of the rabbinical in the Palestine here, before the State of Israel was established, wrote a letter in 1923-22 to Ethiopia, to the spiritual leaders, said, and 43 rabbis signed and sent to encourage the Ethiopian Jews to continue to live in the phase of Moses. So this was all documented historically. But in spite of that, no one was willing to recognize the Ethiopian Jews until 1973. The chief rabbi, the Sephardic chief rabbi, Rav Ovadia Yosef, came and said, according to traditional sources, according to the biblical sources, the Ethiopian Jews are undoubtedly Jewish community, and they must be saved and come and return to the land of Israel. That rabbinical decision was after 2 years joined by the Ashkenazi chief rabbi, was Shlomo Goren. And then in 1975, the first time, the Israeli parliament, the Israeli Knesset, decided that the Ethiopian Jews, they have a right to immigrate to Israel like other Jewish communities in the diaspora under the law of return. Then, even that, it took argument whether we must bring them. If they come, they will not survive in the modern country. Ethiopia is in a primitive country. So there was leaders in that time, they said, bringing Ethiopian Jews from Ethiopia and bringing them to Israel is like taking a fish from the sea and put that fish into the desert. So you can understand what they want to say. But today, I tell to those leaders that when we have today member of Knesset, ministers, and generals in the Israeli Defense Force, judges in the Israeli judicial system, and doctors in the Israeli health system. In all aspects that you see now, the community is integrated into the country and then taking part to strengthen the state of Israel. So after the 1973 recognition was achieved, and then the immigration was not possible until 1977, when Menachem Begin came to power, and he said, the first thing he said was, bring me Ethiopian Jews to Israel. And then he ordered to the Israeli establishments, to the military, to the defense forces, and then that's why they started the immigration to Israel. And today, we have now 170,000 Ethiopian Jews, proud citizens of the state of Israel. I'm not saying there are no challenges on the integration process, but that is in our house, in our home. We have challenges in education, employment, okay. But the dream became into a reality that we are now in Israel. We are now rejoined with our brothers and sisters in the land of Israel. Once again, we are now one people. We are continuing to bring those who are left behind and waiting, because 80% of the people who are waiting in Gondar and in Addis, they have first-degree families in Israel. Parents, sons and daughters, and brothers and sisters. And the Israeli government, I am sure, will understand that and bring them and reunite the families. This is what I would like to say, that the history of Ethiopian Jewish is one of the, it is unquestionable, one of the exile and the survival of Jewish in the diaspora, and the summary of Zionism in our time. This is all I said is happened because we have Israel as a democratic, as a Jewish and a democratic country. And we use that democratic values in order to correct or in order to overcome some of the challenges that we are facing according to the law. This is on the immigration issue. If I come to the integration situation, the community, the children are integrated in the education system, and there's vocational training for those who want to have a professional jobs, and those who wanted to go to university, like me, they go, and the government is supporting and financing the expenditure of the universities, the fees that is, even the children born in Israel can receive that assistance from the government. And the government has also special mortgage program for the Ethiopian Jewish community, because knowing that the community came without any assets. It is not like the other diaspora Jews that they transfer their assets through shipping or ship or a bank or like that. The Ethiopian Jews are coming even without no changing clothes. So the government came and said, we want each family will have an apartment. So the government give 85% allowance, the price of the apartment, and 15% is in a mortgage. In that way, today, I would say 90% of the immigrants, I'm not saying that for the children of the immigrants, I am saying that a family direct came from Ethiopia, stayed in the absorption center in the minimum of 2 years, and then after that, the government provide mortgage, this allowance, and they buy apartment and integrate to the society in every cities. So now you can see, when you come to Israel, you can see Ethiopian Jews everywhere. You can see Ethiopian Jews policemen. You can see Ethiopian Jews soldiers and instructors. You can see Ethiopian Jews in the parliament. You can see Ethiopian Jews in everywhere. So you will be proud when you see that the people that have been denied to come to Israel, the people that in that time they thought, they assumed that they will not survive in Israel, they are really flourishing in Israel. The young people are doing, and what we are continuing to do is to give an opportunity also for those, our brothers and sisters who are suffering in Gondar and Addis Ababa, suffering really, you saw in the living condition where how they live. And thanks for the charity organizations like Maketa. You know, Maketa is doing a wonderful work in Gondar. They are really saving Jewish lives, because the children, without their programs, the children will be wandering on the street. But the Maketa organization has a wonderful program of after-school program, which teaches Hebrew and other subjects, which will prepare them life for Israel, and the loan program that enable the people to survive, and the vocational trainings that really is an extraordinary program, because you're not giving the people money, you are just teaching them and training them and to be self-sufficient. So this is a kind of thing that the Maketa organization is doing, but I know budgets are limited, so there are many needs. And if the organization is empowered, then the community will be empowered. And there are other organizations I have to mention, SASJ, Struggle for Ethiopian Jews, an American organization, American Jewish organization, also especially focusing on humanitarian assistance and Jewish education, strengthening identity, Jewish identity, and this kind of situation. So this gives us an opportunity while we advocate for their coming in the Israeli government.
Thank you so much. Your passion is obvious, and your work that you've told us about is absolutely amazing there. I mean, we're going to turn now. I'm going to find Sybil on the group and bring her in to the screen. But just before I do, you were talking about the challenges. I mean, it's quite clear that there have been challenges both for the Ethiopian jury and for the Israeli and diaspora jury. There's been a focus, our focus has changed from the mainstream, what we think these days of as the mainstream jury in Europe and America, and now we are embracing a much more diverse jury, which means that Jews look different, behave differently, have come from vastly different backgrounds, and we're all embracing them in, like you say, Israel, this democratic country, which permits this to happen these days. But it's been a modern rethinking of our Jewish brain. You know, what is a Jew? Where, you know, what is an Israeli? How can we all come together? I mean, there have been challenges, you know, with the Mizrahi coming into Israel, with the Sephardim as well, and now we're generally overcoming that. Well, I like to think that we're overcoming that. But the challenges there are there in Ethiopia today. You've talked about the political challenges, trying to keep those people coming through, finding different routes, and the political challenges in Israel with the changes in the government and the changes in attitude direction is going on there. I don't know who's got a dog.
Guilty. I'm muting for a minute. I'm sorry.
My dog has just picked up his ears and wondering what's going on. But we also have the challenge of what we do, and Avraham has just alluded to Mikita, which of course is who's responsible for bringing this issue to our meeting on JSCN this morning. So Sybil, I'd like you to talk a little bit, because you founded Mikita and you can tell us, you know, intimately about the work that's going on there. So tell us a little bit.
Yes. Firstly, just a pronunciation thing. It's Mekita. Or Mekita, Shava in Hebrew, the Shava is the way it's pronounced. It's an Amharic word that means protection or support. We started, a friend of mine, Hila Abraham, and I spent several weeks as a volunteer in Gondar in 2008. At the Jewish school there. And I have to confess that before that, I had thought, as so many other people had, that all the Jews went to Ethiopia, you know, from Ethiopia went to Israel in Operation Moses and Operation Solomon. I had no idea that not only was there still a community there, but it had its synagogue and it had a Jewish school. So I volunteered there for some time and was absolutely overwhelmed by the commitment and the love of Judaism and the passionate desire to go to Israel. This is a community that for 4,000 years has prayed daily to return to Jerusalem. And one of the questions that we were posed, which really faced us, was, you could go and live in Israel, why don't you? And it made it so clear, you know, we have the choice, we can go there, and we choose not to. They really want to be there, and they can't get there. We felt very strongly that what we had to do, because the living conditions are really terrible, that mostly these are people who've come in from villages into the town thinking they'd be on the next plane to Israel. And they've been there for over 20 years, some of them. And they were not equipped for urban life. Many of them were illiterate. They really did very badly. They could not sort of survive very well on their own. And a number of charities came in to support them, and the Jewish Agency came in to support them. But at one point, the Jewish Agency left, having decided at one point that all the Jews had left, you know, all the Jews were now in Israel, there was no one left, but there was a sizable community left. So we founded Mekita really as a way of supporting that community. And we felt very strongly that donations of money would not help, that it creates a dependency society. And whether this community actually went to Israel or whether it stayed in Gondar, they had to be able to make their own way. They had to be able to fight their own way out of the poverty trap. And the main way of doing that, of course, is through education. So we started the after-school club in Ethiopia. State schools only run for half a day, and the classes are huge, 70, 80, 90 children in a class. How anybody learns anything beats me. So our after-school club runs in the other half of the day, so children can have education for the full day. And they basically, it follows the national curriculum. It repeats the lessons that they have in school, but in classes of 30. So they have a much better chance of actually learning things. And the evidence is clear. The kids on our programs are now at the top of their classes. They do incredibly well in exams. We've got the first generation now going to university, which is a huge achievement. So, that was one thing. Training was another, to enable people to get better jobs. Because those coming in from the villages, all they could do is get piecework and work on construction once every few days. It was not a regular work. It's dangerous. There were many injuries. Of course, there's no compensation if you're injured. People were really destitute. But we feel very strongly that the way to help people is to enable them to help themselves. And that's why our programs focus on education and focus on training. We also have a sponsorship program for families who really cannot sort of manage to work, single parents. Children are being brought up by other families because their parents have died. These are people that we have a sponsorship program that enables, if the children remain in education, we give a stipend to the parents or the carers so that they are not requiring the children to leave school in order to work. So in all these ways, we are trying to help these people. If they get to Israel, they have already a better start if they're better educated, and they do better altogether. If they remain in Ethiopia, then at least we hope we can take them out of destitution and they will have a better, more fulfilled, more dignified life.
Sybil, thank you. And if people want to help.
Yes, I have. If I share my screen just 1 minute, if I can again, just let me see now. Just to say, that's our website. We are also on Facebook. You can look for our logo, which is this one. You can make donations through the website. Also, we're also on Instagram, if you would like that. That's just one of our chaps. We hope you can help us because, they are in desperate need. So
now, we were also hoping to have, coming from Ethiopia, Ambanesh, and I think she's on the call. So
yes,
would you like to invite her in to say something?
Yes, Amber, are you there? Are you able to unmute and maybe show yourself for a bit so we can see you?
Yeah, can you speak?
I can hear you beautifully.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Okay.
Would you like to say a little bit about who you are and what you do for Meketa?
Thank you very much, Sybil and Dr. Avraham and others in the meeting. I'm Ambanesh. I'm working with Meketa for about 10 years. I'm a field worker, and as Sybil explained, we are working different programs here in the Meketa. The first one is sponsorship, and the other is training and loan, and we have an after-school club also. So Meketa is helping a lot of family in this program. I would like to say thank you.
First of all, Rabbi Yosef Adana is a chief rabbi of Ethiopian Jews. He just recently retired, but still he continued to lead the community as a chief rabbi of the community, the Ethiopian Jews. Is a supporter and and also one of the person on the front who is struggling and demanding bring these people. His late father, Kesadana, is the head of the Kesim, the Kesa Kesim. He visited several times the community in Gondar and Addis Ababa. And
can I just say the Kesim are the traditional Ethiopian priests of the Jewish community. You remember this was, yes, it was a biblical community. They didn't have rabbis because they didn't have the Talmud. So they followed the, line of the Torah, that they had priests who offered sacrifices. That was their tradition. Yeah. Carry on. Sorry.
But Rabbi Yosef Adana is a rabbi because he educated in the modern rabbinical Judaism in Italia and in the land of Israel, and became a chief rabbi of the Ethiopian Jewish community in Israel. I actually did not understand specific your question about the multimedia center. I didn't catch it. I'm sorry, but I would like to stress that Rabbi Yosef Adana is from the beginning. He's a leader of this struggle to bring the remaining one, and until this day, he is demanding and support the community's immigration to Israel. Regarding bringing more and more, look, this is the Jewish community. We don't want that some of them remained and left in Ethiopia because the majority of the community is already in Israel. Now we have 9,000 in Gondar and 3,000 in Addis Ababa. So we are talking 12,000 members of our community who are wishing to migrate to Israel and waiting in Gondar and Addis Ababa. And the government is discussing how to continue to bring. And the community who are here, we are determined that these member of our communities, members, that they are our flesh and our bones, and they must come, return to the land of Israel and rejoin their brothers and sisters, parents, sons and daughters.
Avraham, thank you so much for
Thank you very much.
And Sybil, have you got any last words before we go?
No, just thank you so much for listening to. I think it's unfortunately the Ethiopian community have been so neglected in the past, as Avraham pointed out, the long journey towards recognition. And I think we all really have to think about this. An Ethiopian Jew once said to me, how do you know you're Jewish? Oh, we have Ambanesh. We can see her. We have her now, so we can see her. And I said, well, because, my parents told me, I have their parents told me. And they said, exactly. How long does your tradition go back? And he said, well, we can trace our family back to the 17th century. And he snorted and said, my community is 4,000 years old. I know I'm Jewish, I know. We are the real Jews, he said to me. I mean, they have a tradition which is ancient. Most of us cannot claim that. We don't know our antecedents in the same way. We don't know how we got to Europe. We might know how we got to England, but how did we get to Europe? It's a really fascinating thing. We have to really open our eyes to this much bigger Jewish picture. And for the Ethiopian Jews, unfortunately, they have always been put at the bottom of people's priorities. We really need to raise that up.
Well, let's hope today some more people understand where the priorities should be. And they will chip in and help in one way or another, even if it's just supportive words. It's all helps, doesn't it?
It does indeed.
Sybil, Avraham, Ambanesh, thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you a good week to come. Shavua Tov. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Goodbye to everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. We're going to shut down the meeting now. Thanks again to Sybil, to Ambanesh, to Avraham for joining me. I hope you found that was good. I'm going to edit the video probably in a week's time because I'm not at my desk. And somebody's just entered the meeting, which we're just about to close, so we're not going to. Well, thank you so much. And, I'll be in touch on email. And,
I'm
to you,
really
Doc, as well.